Hi, everyone. I'm excited to be here today to talk to you about some of the miracle stories that are happening right here in our own city, in our own state, every day. My name is Tony Kausha, and the title of our show is Tony's 50,000 Coincidence Miracles. Please note, this show is not about religion, and we're not trying to change anyone's religion, and we're not trying to get you to join any religion. It's just about miracle stories. I don't know of any religion on the planet that doesn't talk about miracles. That's why religions begin, because they have something that's telling them there's really a God. But we're not going to get into that. We're going to just talk about miracles and leave the decisions about all that up to you. So we don't care what religion you are. We just want to talk about miracles. If you are an atheist, I think you'll enjoy the program as well, although I can't guarantee you'll remain an atheist very long after you hear many convincing stories, coincidence kinds of stories about miracles. You can email me your own stories if you wish. We'll try to use all we can on the show. I can't guarantee we will, depending on volume and time, but you're welcome to send your stories on to us, and we will mention them when we can. You can send them to the following email address. But please notice that if we do use your story, we won't mention your name. We'll keep you anonymous. And we suggest that in your story, when you send it to us, don't use your correct name. That way anyone listening will not be able to figure out that it was you that sent the story in. The email address you can send your stories to is very easy to remember. It consists of 2 words and 3 numbers. The first word is Tony, spelled Tony, and the second word is and, spelled A-N-D, and the numbers are 777. So once again, the name is Tony and 777 at AOL.com. Well, let us begin. Our first coincidence miracle this week is about a man who was driving by a gas station, a convenience store, which also sold gasoline. So he decided to fill up his gas tank. He had the time, and he went inside to get a couple of snacks because he was going to be on a long trip. And when he went inside, he noticed that the store manager was having an argument with one of the patrons because the patron had asked for 5 scratch-off lottery tickets, but he had changed his mind, and the bill was $25 for the 5 scratch-off tickets. And so they were in a bit of a heated argument verbally, and he was standing at the counter with his the snacks he had purchased, and the store manager looks at him and suddenly says, "Would you be interested in purchasing these tickets?" And he was stunned because he never purchased scratch-off tickets. He only had a brief moment to think about it. He just felt amazing peace, and amazing yes came over him. He felt like there was no doubt in his mind. He didn't know why. And he just said yes. So his first reaction was he thought, well, at least I'll stop the argument and maybe I'll win some money in the process. So he paid the $25, and it turns out that the lottery tickets became real winners because he won a total of $50,000. That's $1,000 more than $49,000, so I can be perfectly clear. He won $50,000. Now, he was telling me this story with his wife also there, and she also chimed in, and she said that after taxes, the $50,000 became exactly enough money to pay off all of the debts that were driving them crazy because they were in risk of losing their home, which they had recently purchased about a year ago. But then they got hit with all of these other expenses over the last year, medical expenses, etc. And after taxes, the amount they wound up getting covered everything they had to cover and put them on positive footing. And they're both positive, especially the wife, absolutely positive this was a miracle. And if you heard all of the fine parts of the story that they were relating to me, and all of the bills they had and all of the troubles they had for a year that caused them to go into debt, you would understand and agree. And they had friends praying for them as well for all of their problems. And so they certainly feel with their prayers and their friends' prayers, which is the key. If we pray, we get miracles. And in this case, they got a miracle that, after taxes, covered all of their bills. Our next coincidence miracle is from one of our listeners, a woman who had a very uncommon blood infection. Very extremely uncommon, and the doctors were experimenting with different kinds of meds to try to help her. So there was very little hope, and she had a lot of side effects and reactions from this sickness. All the side effects you can imagine from having a blood infection and stomach infections. So she spent 5 years with doctors trying new treatments and whatever late inventions were coming out. She was always in a state of wonder how long she was going to live. Went on for 5 years. She was married, so it was a sad event for the family, trying to plan positive things when you're always wondering if you're going to be surviving the next week. So she had this constant thing in her mind, is she going to be alive next week? And she lived week by week. She survived. She was totally cleared of the infection, and after 5 years she's back to being a very normal person. And her motto, for anybody who's interested, she says her motto is, never give up hope, no matter what anybody tells you. Never give up hope and prayer, because prayer does work. Our next coincidence miracle is probably the briefest and smallest coincidence miracle you'll ever hear about on this show. I tell everybody, to keep asking God to help you create your to-do list when you're doing things for the day. Plan, what things to do and in what order. And I finished my to-do list, and so I said, Lord, what should I do next? And I got an inspiration to turn the radio on. So I turned the radio on, and there was a dead silence for a brief second, but then they started playing a certain record, which happens to be the record you hear at the end of all of our weekly shows. The theme song that comes on at the end of all of our recordings is, I really want to see you, Lord. I really want to be with you. And that's the song that started. As I turned the radio on, it started, and I got to listen to the whole song from beginning to end. As I said, it's a brief, short thing, but the point I'm trying to make is I finished my to-do list. I asked God what to do next. I got inspired, turned the radio on, and this is proof that if you ask God what to do, He sends you clues that He is with you. And I thought you might appreciate and enjoy that quick miracle. Our next miracle, coincidence miracle, is once again evidence that God is guiding people who do trust Him and ask Him what to do. I was inspired by God to go to a brand new park and to pass out cards about the 2 books He wrote with me and about our weekly radio show. So I was inspired to go to a new place, and I got ready, packed things up. And when I was out, I got into the car, I got inspired to go back inside and get another thing that I had left inside, which I might need. The possibility was that I might need it once every 10 years. There wasn't any really serious need, but I felt I should do it. And if God inspires you to do things, you should always do what you think God is inspiring you to do, no matter how great or small you think it might be personally. And this is going to be proof of that moment. So I went back inside. I got the thing. I was trying to obey God and do what He was telling me to do. And that delayed me. It delayed me from getting on my trip. But as you'll notice, it made me perfectly on time. Because the next thing that happened was I pulled out of my driveway, and I pulled out, and as I pulled out, I wound up being in back of a car that passed by my driveway, and they had a license plate, all capital letters, the letter H for Henry, or H for heaven. And there were 3 of them, 3 H's that was on the license plate. There were other things on the license plate, but the 3 H's were side by side. and that's the 8th letter of the alphabet, so that's 3 8s really, if you convert the letters into numbers. So I'm on this trip of it's going to take about an hour to get to this new park, but I'm following this car, and I guess for about 15 minutes I was following this car, and 3 8s is the number that signifies the holy name of Jesus. So the message God was giving me is, because I went back into the house to get the thing he told me to get, it delayed me to be perfectly on time, really, to get behind this car. And so I was off to a good start on this trip. And the next thing that happened was, an hour later, I got to the park I was supposed to get to, and as I'm pulling into the driveway, the entrance driveway of this new park, I find that I'm following a car with a license plate number 777. At perfect timing, I got to this park an hour from my house. So on this particular day, because I went back into the house and got this thing that was very minor to get, which I really never used that day at all, but it delayed me, I followed 3 H's, which is 3 8s, and when I got to this park an hour later, I was behind, as I entered the park, I was behind a car with the number 777. Well, the next thing that happened was, when I was looking for a place to park, I saw this very huge parking lot that was packed. This was a holiday, and apparently everybody went out to the park this day, so it was packed with cars, and I could see people driving way back in the back of the parking lot. I could see the cars that had come in. There was a long line going to the far end. Naturally, you would go to the end of the parking spot. You'd follow the line. But I got inspired to pull into the second row. So the second row, out of what looked to be about 15 or 20 rows ahead of us, filled with cars. So I followed my inspiration. Nothing ventured, nothing gained. I was inspired, and you should follow inspirations from God. So I went down the second row, and as I was going down the second row, about halfway down, a car started to pull out of its parking spot. So I stopped. I waited for them to pull out, and after they pulled out, they went the other way, so I was able to back into their parking spot. And after I backed into their parking spot, I looked in front of me, and the car that was sitting there parked in front of me had a license plate number 444, which, as you may remember, 3 4s is the number that signifies the holy name of the Blessed Virgin Mary, the Mother of Jesus. So here, so far I've had great miracles with numbers. I get to the park, I see 3 7s. I get to a packed parking lot. I'm told to go down the second row. I pull into the spot that just got vacated, and what's in front of me? 3 4s. But the miracle didn't stop there, because the 3 4s started to back out. They started to back out of their parking spot that they were pulling out and leaving, which is another great coincidence, because the car that just left that I just parked into the spot of was right in back of that car. So both cars in row 2 are pulling out the same time. Pretty amazing coincidence. And wait till I tell you what happens next. The car with the 3 4s pulls out, and the next car that pulls in pulls in while I'm there. I'm still in my car. I'm still in a state of awe. And the car that pulls in has 3 7s on it. And it was not the car that I followed into the driveway. It was another car that also had 3 7s on it. And 3 7s, I'm sure you all know by now, is the number that indicates God's presence, God's power, or God's permission. Well, I hope today's story convinces you that God does use numbers to show that He is close to us during our day, especially when we're trying to do His will. Certainly in my life, this has happened many, many times, and I'm convinced. God bless you all. I will talk to you next week.